So if you guys look at the cadaver picture, you will see that the first muscle you have there is the brachioradialis that will turn anteriorly. It's not gonna show up with this people because it flexes the elbow, and then that would be followed by someone who is coming from the supracondylar ridge next to the brachioradialis, which is the extensor carpi radialis longus. And then you can see how what is my laser pointer, how this muscle is moving, all right, to the base down of the second metacarpal, and that is followed by the extensor carpi radialis brevis. All right, once we're done with those guys, we will go to the digitorum. So here we have the extensor digitorum. You guys can see how the digits are going all the way to the dorsum of the hand, and that would be followed by the extensor digiti minimi that goes to the little finger, and then which is this one here, digiti minimi, and then extensor carpi ulnaris. So this is extensor digiti minimi, and then the extensor carpi ulnaris is gonna be right behind the ulna bone. And if you want to see the anconeus, this is anconeus. Can you guys see the fleshy fibers here? You can see something white, and you can see something like muscle fibers here. This is the anconeus. All right, so this is the anconeus. All right, it goes to the back of ulna. All right, so I will delete it so you can see it once more. This is the anconeus. How will you remember the extensor group? It's very easy. You just look at your hand and start counting them. Look at your hand and start counting them. You have brachioradialis that goes to the elbow side. You have brachioradialis that goes to elbow side. I'm assuming that you are trying to imagine that on yourself. So you have brachioradialis comes out from down here, and it's making the bulk, and it's going to the front of the elbow, and then it's followed by carpi radialis longus and brevis, because you guys know that your radius is here, your ulna is here. Okay, so you have brachioradialis, carpi radialis longus, carpi radialis brevis, the three ones. Now we have another three. Forget about the anconeus, it's number 7. All right, we have another 3. One will go to all my digits, extensor digitorum. One will go to my little finger, so it's gonna be digiti minimi. And one will go in the ulna side, it's gonna be extensor carpi ulnaris. So this is 3 to the digits, 4 digiti minimi, 5 ulnaris. 4, 5, 6. So these are the 6 muscles. Now, what is the innervation? You guys, if you have a nerve, a muscle that is coming from the lower end of humerus, it's gonna be by radial nerve itself. Why? Because you guys, when the radial nerve comes at the point of the radius, at around the head of radius, it will at that level stop and terminate and give you a deep and posterior interosseous branch and superficial sensory branch. So below that point, you guys don't have radial nerve. You have a deep branch of it called posterior interosseous nerve. So the people were coming from above, which is the extensor carpi ulnaris, radialis longus, the brachioradialis, all right, and anconeus. All people coming from above, they were taking from the radial nerve itself. Now, once we are down here, once we came below, the other 3 muscles were take innervation from the posterior interosseous nerve. All right, so it will take from the posterior interosseous nerve. Why did I write 3 and 4? 3 and 3, it should be 4, because carpi radialis brevis is not coming from the supracondylar ridge. It comes like the others. So 1, 2, 3, 4, all of these will take from the posterior interosseous nerve. Okay, only the people that are originating from the humerus itself above, which is the brachioradialis, extensor carpi radialis longus, and anconeus, will take from the radial nerve. The 4 muscles down will take from the posterior interosseous, the deep muscular branch of radial nerve, because at the point of the radial head, the radial nerve, we're going to talk about the radial nerve now. It will end giving us two nerves, one deep posterior interosseous muscular and one superficial radial, that will take care of sensation. So after all the names that were there in the flexors, we have them in extensors, except that we have here an extra digiti minimi in, or digiti minimi, fine. And we splitted the extensor carpi radialis into longus and brevis. All right, that is regarding the superficial group. Now, what about the deep group? The deep group, guys, we have 5 muscles, SAXXX muscles. What are these muscles? You have supinator, you have abductor, pollicis longus, and then you have extensor pollicis longus, extensor pollicis brevis, and extensor indicis. Oh my God, how can I remember these? It's very simple and easy. You guys know that the pollicis, or the thumb, is a very important finger. So it has its own muscles. It has flexor pollicis longus, all right? And the brevis is in the hand. That's why we don't mention it in the flexor group. And in the extensor compartment, it has also longus and brevis. And both of them, they originate from the forearm. That's why we say extensor pollicis longus and brevis. Okay, now what about the abductor? Because I need to do abduction of my thumb, and I don't have any abductor muscle here to serve me. So I will have abductor pollicis longus, and I also have brevis in the hand. Again, but the extensor pollicis longus and brevis, both of them are in the forearm. That's why we mention both of them. Okay, so, and also we have the supinator. Okay, why am I saying them in this order? Because this is the origin, this is the name that they originate from superior to inferior. We have supinator, and then up to down, abductor pollicis longus, extensor pollicis longus, extensor pollicis brevis, extensor indicis. This is the order up to down. So SAXXX. Where do they attach themselves? It's easy. If I am a pollicis, I will attach myself to the distal phalanx of the thumb. If I am anything pollicis, will go to the distal phalanx of thumb. And if I am supinator, ulnator radius, great. I have one indicis, good. So I will go and attach myself to the index finger, proximal phalanx of the index finger. And okay, someone will tell me, okay, it's confusing because we have here extensor indicis and extensor digiti minimi, and we didn't have those guys in the flexor group. And you're saying we're following the flexor group. Okay, if you don't have this extensor digiti minimi, okay, how would you do with your friend a pinky promise? Would it be easy to do it? No. So thanks to the extensor digiti minimi, that will help the digit, the little digit, to become out of the group, and we can do a pinky promise. Okay, now how can I remember that we have extensor indices and we don't have flexor? Great. If you want to point at something with your finger, how would you do it? You would extend your index finger. So thanks for the extensor indices that we have it an extra muscle that we don't have it in the flexor group. So with that, everything in the flexor group would be followed in the extensor group, except that we broke down the radialis, carpi radialis, into longus and brevis, and except that we had a separate muscle for the indices and digiti minimi. One of them was superficial, which is the digiti minimi. One of them is deep, in the deep group, which is an X, extensor indices, is one of the SAXXX rule that we made. What is the innervation? Posterior interosseous nerve. So can we say them once more? Yes. Supinator, S, A, the A is abductor pollicis longus, XXX, extensor pollicis longus, extensor pollicis brevis, extensor indicis. And how can we remember the origin of those muscles? All of the muscles are originating from the ulna, except The brevis, because it has an I letter, so it comes out of radius, and the abductor comes out of both of them because it's a broad and important muscle. Okay, so abductor pollicis longus comes out of ulna and radius, all of them from the ulna except the brevis, extensor pollicis brevis. It's gonna come out of radius, and you know where they will be attached. Okay, so now we had general rules for everything, and everything should be easy for you to remember. So all of these muscles will will take innervation by the D branch of radial nerve, which is the posterior interosseous nerve. All right. And for the superficial group, we talked about them. We said that people coming from above will take from the radial itself, and then people down will take from posterior interosseous because it will end. Now I want you guys to look at this picture here. If you guys look at this picture, this is how the brachial artery comes in here, and then at the radius neck, it will end up giving you ulnar artery and radial artery. The radial artery will go all the way. Did I show you those muscles in cadaver? Oh, I didn't mention them in the cadaver, yeah? Yeah, can we see the deep group first? Okay, so we want to see the deep group first. So what would be those muscles? Remember that we said the deep group is muscles arranged from up to down. If you trace the tendons, you will be able to say which muscle is it. If you have a muscle that come broadly from both of them in the center, this is abductor pollicis longus. It goes all the way to abduct the thumb. And then remember, we said the SAXXX. The S, you guys, the supinator, it's a very famous muscle. It wraps around the proximal end of radius, wraps around it. So it's a very deep muscle. In order for me to show you, I have to remove these muscles so you can see how it wraps around the radius. So this is S. Now it's followed by AXXX. The A is the abductor pollicis longus. It comes from the center, from both of them, and it goes all the way laterally to supply the to move the thumb into abduction. The S A, now we have XXX. What are the three X? We have extensor pollicis longus. This is the one. It comes from ulna. It goes all the way, and it gives you a tendon in the dorsum of your hand. Okay, you can see this one. It's separate. The extensor pollicis longus tendon. Sorry, I was pointing at the index. This one. If you guys look at the thumb, you will have one tendon there, one tendon here, one tendon here. I'm going to tell you a story about the three tendons of the abductor pollicis longus, extensor pollicis longus, and brevis in the hand. You will know that the abductor pollicis longus moves with the extensor pollicis brevis. And the extensor pollicis longus moves alone. Okay, so this one, and the dorsum, the extensor pollicis longus. Okay, this one. Okay, so again at the back, deep dissection. You can come back to this video after we finish the story of them on the hand. Go back and forth and make sure you listen to the information more than once. So the muscle that comes out of both in the center is the abductor pollicis longus, and it goes all the way, and it's very far there. And then the SA. Now we have XXX. Extensor pollicis longus is here. This is extensor pollicis longus, comes out of ulna. And then can you guys see the small piece of muscle that coming from the radius here? Remember I told you the only one that comes from radius, the one that has I, extensor pollicis brevis, this is the brevis. Brevis, guys, the tendon of brevis here. So this is abductor pollicis longus tendon, and this is extensor pollicis brevis tendon. They move together. They will make a deal together, and they will move together, and we will know about that in the next videos of hand. And the one that moves alone for the extensor pollicis longus. So this is all the way extensor pollicis longus. All right, and that was extensor pollicis brevis until it give you this tendon. And then the one that comes from the center here and it goes very laterally, this is the abductor pollicis longus. Okay, what else do we have? We said S, A, and then X, X. The last X, guys, can you see the last X? Which color? Red. This is the last one coming also of ulna. Goes all the way to the index. This is the extensor indicis. Okay, So here we have the deep group, and they are all supplied by posterior interosseous nerve, D branch of radial nerve. Right, guys? Now let's get back to the arteries. Remember, I don't have much of things to say because we already talked about how the radial artery goes all the way to the radial side, and we're going to talk about that in the hand. And then you have the ulnar. It gives you common interosseous, and it continues to the ulnar side, and we're going to talk about how it enters the hand through the Guyon's canal in the hand. And then you have a branch from the ulnar artery, which is the common interosseous. It will split into a posterior branch that moves back behind the interosseous membrane, and one moves in the front all the way until it reaches the aperture, and then it comes to the back side from the aperture. So these are the arteries. If you want to see them here, you will see that in a cadaver, brachial artery finishes here. You have here a radial artery in the radial side. You have ulnar artery on the ulnar side. And the one that you can catch deep in front of the interosseous is going to be the anterior interosseous artery, and the posterior is already going backside. And then the ulnar artery will finish in the hand by forming something we call it superficial palmar arch. And then the radial will finish as D palmar arch. So the radial will form the D palmar arch, radial D, it will form D, it will form the D palmar arch, and the ulnar artery, all right, will finish in the hand as superficial palmar arch. But in order for me to close off the arch, every one of them will help the other. So if the radial artery is giving deep palmar arch, the ulnar artery will give a deep branch to close off the deep palmar arch of radius. Okay? And if the ulnar artery is giving superficial palmar arch, the radial artery will give a deep branch, superficial branch to close off the superficial palmar arch of ulnar. Okay, just remember that the radial D, it ends as deep palmar arch. And the ulnar artery finishes at superficial palmar arch. And to close it off, you will get a branch from the other guy. Radial will send superficial branch to the ulnar, and the ulnar will send a deep branch to the radial arch. And now the nerves. If you look at the nerves, we talked about how the radial nerve, when it comes around the radial head, it will give you a deep branch, and then it will give you a superficial branch. The deep branch will take care of everyone in the forearm. But from the radial nerve itself, we already gave the brachioradialis and extensor carpi radialis longus, and also anconeus. And once we reach to the CEO, those guys and even the deep group will be innervated by the deep branch of radial. Now, if you look at this picture, you will find someone reaching the cubital fossa, and it's giving two branches. This is going to be the brachial artery. It will give you ulnar and radial. You will find also a nerve that goes to the cubital fossa. We call it median nerve. And then you will find someone, these are cutaneous branches, some nerve that wraps back to the medial epicondyle. We call it ulnar nerve. And a nerve that finishes at this level, and then it sends cutaneous branches, so that's going to be the superficial radial. So if you guys look at this picture again, brachial artery is here, median nerve goes all the way, and then it enters the hand deep to the flexor retinaculum. This is median nerve, and then the ulnar is behind the medial epicondyle, and then at that point radial nerve finishes. It gives superficial branch, and then deep posterior interosseous branch. And what else? Here you have the ulnar nerve and ulnar artery reaching the hand through, we will have a Guyon's canal superficial to the flexor retinaculum, and we're going to talk about that in the hand. All right, I think that's all we need to know here. And then one clinical note is that it happens when there is a fracture in distal end of radius. If there is a fracture of distal end of radius, you will have something called Colles fracture or Smith fracture. The possibly injured nerve would be the median nerve, because you know that the median nerve runs here in front of the wrist. And then when the distal fragment is displaced dorsally, That is Colles fracture. When it's displaced ventrally, if you guys look at the distal fragment, in Smith fracture, it's displaced ventrally. And in Colles, it's displaced distally. All right. How can you remember that? The deformity that follows Colles fracture, they call it dinner fork deformity, D. Dinner fork deformity. So it will move dorsally. The distal, D, everything is D. Dinner fork deformity, everything in D. The distal fragment of radius in Colles will be displaced dorsally, and that is what we call dinner fork deformity. Median nerve will be at risk. And then how does that happen? When someone falls on outstretched hand. However, if someone falls on flexed wrist, the Smith fracture will happen. The distal fragment will move ventrally, and the specific information about it is that they call it reverse Colles fracture. All right. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you grasped the concept very well, and see you in the hand videos.